Amazing discovery. Soldier and K9 expose unexpected truth behind little girls touching whisper. Mike Thompson had always believed that some bonds were unbreakable. Years of military service had taught him that, and now, as he stood beside his faithful German shepherd, Zeus, he had found purpose once again. Yet, on that fateful afternoon at the community center, a whisper from a timid little girl would tear at the fabric of his determination and expose the vulnerability he had thought long buried. Little Lily, only 8, had approached him with a hesitant smile, breaking through the walls of his solitary existence. She barely uttered a word, but when Zeus drew near, her shyness melted away, replaced by laughter that echoed like music in Mike's heart. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming surge of protection and responsibility towards this young girl, igniting the protective instinct ingrained in him. Still, uncertainty churned within. What could a retired soldier offer a family on the brink of economic despair? As she spoke of her father, the weight of conflict within her voice haunted Mike. Her father's recent job loss loomed like a storm cloud, casting a shadow on what should have been carefree childhood moments. Mike recognized that familiar shame lurking in the corners of their interactions, a heaviness he himself had felt after returning from deployment. The harsh judgment of others is something he had fought against too, and now his heart raced as he considered the systemic forces that seemed designed to keep families like Lily's at bay. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That moment shifted everything within him. He could see her tenderness that was anchored to something far deeper than her own circumstances. Lily not only longed for the companionship of an animal, she was searching for meaning in her family's struggle. Mike wrestled with a moral dilemma. How could he fight for a cause so close to his heart when those around him hesitated to come forth with support? He felt trapped between two worlds, the memory of battlefields where brotherhood was forged in fire and the quiet of the small Midwestern town where whispers of unworthiness crowded the air. As he drew closer to her family's secret, her grandfather, a forgotten soldier whose sacrifices went unrecognized, Mike was fueled by a need to honor them both. Yet, the whispers of doubt swirled around him. What if the community turned its back? What if his plans for a charity fundraiser fell flat, crushing their hopes and revealing judgment instead of helping hand? The tension between resolve and fear built like a tightening noose around Mike's chest. The night of the fundraiser loomed large ahead of him, and all he could envision was the scornful glares of those who thought they had the right to determine worth. Desperation set in. He had to bring unity to discontent, even when it felt impossible. The knot in his chest tightened further, and just when the uncertainties threatened to swallow him whole, he locked eyes with Lily once more. The sparkle reflecting her innocence and courage ignited the last flicker of hope within him. He knew then, more than ever, that everything hinged on her unspoken truth. But the question remained: would the community dare to listen? The next morning was draped in a heavy fog that settled over the small town like a blanket, reflecting the unease that had lodged itself in Mike's mind. He awoke early, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on him. Every thought was tinged with the flickers of doubt and determination that had become all too familiar. He stepped outside, Zeus following closely, and breathed in the damp air. Each inhale was a reminder of the battle that awaited him, not with an enemy on the field, but with his own fears and uncertainties. Mike spent the morning replaying the interactions of the past week. The light in Lily's eyes haunted him. It was a beacon of hope against the backdrop of bleak circumstances. She had reached out to him, and the responsibility felt monumental. He wasn't just fundraising, he was standing up for a family, resonating with the silent screams of struggle. But what could he do? He had no experience in charity or public speaking. The ghosts of his past service lingered, stirring memories of comrades lost not just in battle but to the societal neglect that often followed. As he and Zeus walked through the neighborhood, observing familiar streets now filled with doubt, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. He had never shied away from challenges, and this felt like one he couldn't ignore. Maybe the community wouldn't support him, but he wouldn't allow that possibility to dictate his actions. He would uncover every hidden truth behind Lily's story and advocate for her grandfather, a forgotten hero deserving of honor. It was a risk, but something inside him urged him to try, to push past the walls he had built around himself. With that decision dawning bright in him, he turned towards the local library, an unexpected sanctuary filled with resources that could hold the key to his plans. Once in the quiet building, he felt a wave of gratitude for the plethora of information at his fingertips. He rifled through books about fundraising and community outreach, absorbing the advice like a sponge. Knowledge felt empowering, a way to turn his anxiety into action. Hours slipped away as Mike pored over pages, writing down notes, devising a strategy for what he wanted to communicate. He marked key points about the importance of supporting veterans and their families, wanting to evoke compassion rather than simply pity. In the corner of his mind, however, doubt still gnawed at him. Would the community respond to that call? What if his passion for Lily's cause went unheard? Later that evening, he summoned his courage and called a few friends from his past military life, brothers he knew would understand his vision. The conversations were tense but alive with energy. His comrades expressed interest, offering support in various forms, sharing their own stories, attending the fundraising effort, even pooling together resources. Just as he began to gain momentum, Mike felt a wave of realization wash over him. Though fear threatened to sabotage his resolutions, it was action that would forge clarity. With each passing moment, the looming night of the fundraiser drew nearer, but now it arrived with a sense of purpose. He had found his footing among the fluidity of uncertainty. The weight in his chest lessened, replaced by a steely determination forged through resolve and connection. Perhaps this was the rebirth he needed, an awakening rooted not only in defending a cause but in becoming the voice for someone who felt too small to speak. But as the day of reckoning approached, could he truly inspire the community to rise above their biases and reach out in support, or would he find himself alone in a moment he desperately needed to matter? What lay ahead felt daunting yet beckoning, and he knew whatever transpired it was a crossroads that would forever alter not just Lily's family, but himself as well. Little did he know, the heart of the town held secrets darker than his insecurities, secrets that would call everything he had learned into question. The day finally arrived, suffused with a strange blend of excitement and dread. Mike stood in front of the community hall, a modest building. Its unremarkable exterior belied the significance of the moments that would unfold within. He could feel the hum of anticipation settling around him, an electric current energizing his resolve while simultaneously tightening the knot of anxiety in his stomach. As he paced back and forth, Zeus at his side, Mike mentally rehearsed his notes, each word a lifeline tossed into the uncertain waters ahead. The importance of the message weighed on him. It couldn't just be a gathering, it needed to spark real change. His palms were slick against the pages, a testament to both the stakes involved and the vulnerability he had chosen to embrace. The room began to fill, familiar faces mixed with strangers. The warmth of their nods and quiet murmurs brought an unexpected comfort, yet his heart raced, questioning whether they genuinely cared or if they were simply there for the sake of civility. As he greeted a few attendees, he noticed a woman in the back, a stranger until now who caught his attention. There was an intensity in her gaze, an unsettling awareness as if she saw through his facade. Soon, the gathering settled into an expectant hush. Feeling the weight of their eyes, Mike hesitated. Had he prepared enough? Would his vulnerability resonate or fall flat? With Zeus at his feet, he took a deep breath and stepped forward, grounding himself in the knowledge he had spent hours assembling. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice shaky at first but gaining strength as he found his footing. "We're here to talk about Lily and her grandfather, a man who deserves not just our memory but our action." The crowd seemed to lean in, engaged, and for a moment, the flickers of doubt were drowned out by a swelling tide of resolve. As he shared their story, each word painting the picture of struggle and courage, Mike felt a shift within himself. This wasn't merely about advocating for Lily's family, it was a reclamation of his voice, a challenge to the shadows that had lingered all too long. He opened himself up, sharing how the responsibility intertwined with his past, drawing a line from soldier to advocate for change. The words flowed, fueled by an urgency he had scarcely understood before this moment. By the end, Mike felt a certain kinship with the room. Their applause was tentative at first, then grew into something warm, alive. As he stepped down, ego still high from the experience, the woman from before approached him, her features now softened by respect rather than judgment. "You did well," she said, her voice low. "But the real work is just beginning." Before he could respond, she handed him a slip of paper. "Meet me after this. There's something you need to know," she insisted, the intensity in her eyes urging him to take her seriously. Mike felt the re-emergence of something darker within him, a prickling curiosity mingling with apprehension. What could she know that might affect his newfound purpose? As the crowd slowly dispersed, he wrestled with the feeling that what just transpired might not only ignite a movement for Lily's family, but also unravel parts of himself he had yet to confront. In that moment of uncertainty, with an exhilarating mix of dread and excitement swelling in his chest, Mike made the decision. He would meet her. The quest to unearth the stories buried within the town and perhaps within himself had only just begun. What secrets and surprises waited just beneath the surface, and were they truths he was prepared to face? With each step toward that woman, he sensed the gravity of a revelation looming on the horizon, one that could shatter or solidify everything he had fought to rebuild. Mike's heart raced as he approached the woman, whose name was still unknown to him. The slip of paper felt like a tether to a truth he had yet to grasp, a truth that could reshape his journey and understanding of himself. Was he prepared for what lay ahead? He wrestled with the question as they moved to a quiet corner of the hall, away from the lingering chatter and retreating footsteps of other attendees. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the lingering buzz of adrenaline that filled Mike. The intensity still flickered in her eyes, adding weight to the air between them. "My name is Eliza. I saw something in your speech. You have a lot more to offer than just a platform for Lily's story." "Thank you, Eliza," he said, wary yet intrigued. "But what do you mean by that?" Her gaze dropped momentarily, a flicker of hesitation breaking her otherwise confident demeanor. "You're grappling with more than just advocacy," she stated while her eyes seemed to pierce his confusion. "And it's been wrestling with you for a long time, hasn't it?" Caught off guard, Mike felt his past creeping up like a shadow he couldn't shake. "Was it that obvious?" "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied, striving for composure despite the rush of emotions threatened to spill over. "Don't lie to yourself," she shot back, her voice firm, yet compassionate. "You stood up there and revealed a part of yourself that's hidden. You want to honor Lily's grandfather, but it's more than that. You need to honor your own history." He hungered to push back against her words, to hold on to the narrative he had so carefully curated. But somewhere within him, an ember of recognition sparked. She was right. This wasn't solely about the advocacy. It was about finding a redemption he never realized he was seeking. In his pursuit of meaning and purpose for Lily, he had inadvertently begun a quest for his own. "Why do you care?" he asked, exploring the roots of her concern. Eliza took a breath, visibly calming herself. "Because I understand," she replied slowly. "I've been through my own hell and back. Sometimes you need someone who can look at you and see the unspoken burdens you carry. This isn't just a movement. This is about confronting the silence that haunts you." Her raw honesty struck a chord. Mike felt vulnerable yet also strangely liberated, as if the weight of years spent hiding behind layers of armor were crumbling. "What do you know about me?" he challenged softly, his curiosity igniting against his apprehension. "I know that you left something important behind when you came back from deployment. And you don't have to keep isolating yourself," she urged. "You can transform that pain into something that helps others." And I can help you find the path. What do we need to do? Mike found himself asking, the urgency of her words resonating within him. The flickers of potential were lighting the path ahead. Each moment held the promise to move through his struggles, transforming them into a source of strength rather than a heavy weight. Eliza smiled, her confidence returning. Let us dive deeper into the stories of those in your neighborhood. You have the ability to uncover truths that go beyond Lily and her grandfather. You can amplify their voices, but you must first acknowledge your own. Are you ready for that? As he contemplated her words, Mike felt clarity burgeoning. The work ahead would not only restore a semblance of justice but would also force him to reckon with the narratives he had buried for far too long. Let us do it, he said, determination infusing each syllable. It was time to excavate the truths hidden within him. With that resolution, Mike felt a new layer of his identity ready to unfurl, as he prepared to face the daunting and transformative journey forthcoming. But as they stepped back into the hall, an unsettling feeling clawed at him from the shadows. Would this journey ignite his transformation, or would it instead unleash the demons he had long sought to escape? Each step forward felt both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing on the brink of a precipice with no clear sight of what lay beyond. Mike's heart drummed in his chest as he and Eliza emerged from the dim corner of the hall, the voices and bustling crowd engulfing them once more. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a cocktail of anticipation and anxiety coursing through him. The clear path ahead was now cloaked in uncertainty, but he couldn't back down. The conversation with Eliza ingrained in him a sense of urgency. It was more than just a mission. This was about confronting the ghosts of his past, bringing them into the light. As they navigated through the crowd, he could sense the undercurrents of stories waiting to be unearthed, hidden narratives resonating beneath the surface of casual interactions. Each smiling face concealed a world of pain, joy, and resilience. He turned to Eliza, determined to grasp the opportunity ahead. Where do we start? Let us go meet some families, she replied, her tone imbued with warmth that contrasted against his turbulent insides. We'll listen. Sometimes the simplest act of listening can uncover depths we never imagined. Listening. It was an act he had overlooked in his solitary struggles. Mike had been so focused on his own narrative that he had forgotten to engage with others. He felt a twinge of guilt for his self-absorption, but alongside it, a flicker of resolve to shift that pattern. They stepped out into the sunlit street, a contrast to the dim interior where shadows had stifled his breath. The vastness of the neighborhood sprawled before him, unknowingly inviting him into the real stories of those who lived here. He glanced over his shoulder at Eliza, who walked with an assured stride, as if she knew exactly where they were headed. Their first stop, a modest house adorned with vibrant flowers, exuded warmth. A woman named Clara welcomed them, her eyes shimmering with the stories she had yet to tell. With every minute spent with Clara, Mike found himself taking mental notes, not just of the details of her life but also of the emotions etched across her face: heartache, hopes, and the resolve of survival. Listening to her, he realized that these were the voices he had neglected in his own narrative. What do you think? Eliza whispered as they made their way back to the car. Her expression held a blend of encouragement and curiosity. There's so much more than just pain, Mike replied, his mind racing to process the depth of Clara's experience. It's about connection. She shared her struggle, yet there's a determination in her that feels empowering. Exactly. And what do you think that says about you? She prompted, a sly smile tugging at her lips. Before he could answer, a thought slammed into him: his own struggles were not dissimilar. Like Clara, he had faced his demons, but his journey seemed shackled by the weight of unacknowledged pain. I've never seen it that way, he admitted, grappling with revelations that suddenly felt palpable. Every story they uncovered would not only amplify others' voices but would also serve to rewrite his own script. As they moved to the next house, Mike felt the foundations of his identity shifting. This wasn't just about Lily or her grandfather anymore, it was about him stepping into a fuller version of himself. The notion of layering his experiences with those of others felt liberating. The fear that previously confined him now began to twist into determination. Could it be possible that in helping others, he would also help himself? But then an unexpected voice echoed in his mind, a bittersweet reminder of the burden he carried. Would every truth unearthed shine a light on his own past, or would it reveal shadows that felt too daunting to confront? The stakes were climbing as the journey deepened. What will the next story reveal? He questioned, a sense of trepidation coupled with hope swirling in his heart as they approached their next destination. He felt the tightrope beneath his feet, recognizing he was poised on the threshold of something perilous yet essential. As they approached the next house, Mike couldn't shake the sense of impending revelation. Each step felt heavier, with the weight of unspoken truths looming in the air. Eliza stopped in front of a small, unassuming home, a faded red door framed by overgrown hedges. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever lay ahead. The sound of laughter drifted from inside, contrasting sharply with the anxiety simmering within him. "Are you ready?" Eliza asked, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Yeah, I think so," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. He wasn't entirely sure what he was ready for. With a nod from Eliza, he knocked, the sound echoing in the stillness of the moment. A few seconds later, the door swung open, revealing a middle-aged man with a face softened by kindness and eyes that held more stories than Mike could imagine. "Welcome. I'm Tom," the man greeted them, ushering them inside with an inviting gesture. The warmth enveloped Mike, making him feel momentarily at ease. Once inside, the walls were adorned with family photos that spoke of joy and sorrow, time-worn mementos capturing moments of love. Mike noticed a sweet giggle echoing through the hallway, pulling his attention to a little girl emerging from a room with wide-eyed curiosity. "This is my daughter, Mia," Tom introduced, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. The girl looked up at Eliza and Mike, her inquisitive eyes shining with innocence. "What do you do?" Mia asked in a small voice, her attention entirely focused on Mike. He hesitated, grappling with how to articulate his purpose. "I'm learning to listen to stories," he finally said, surprising even himself with the candidness of that admission. "What kind of stories?" Mia pressed, a serious look crossing her cherubic face. "Stories about people. About their lives," he replied, a warmth flooding his chest. Speaking to her felt different, lighter, as if the weight of his own past momentarily melted away. Mia tilted her head, appearing deep in thought. "I like stories. Sometimes I wish I could make mine go away, but I can't. Can you help me?" The sincerity in her voice struck him. For a brief moment, Mike felt a flash of panic. How could he possibly help this child? The haunting echoes of his own unresolved issues surged to the forefront, threatening to drown his newfound courage. He started, but the words fell flat. Looking at Eliza, he found not just a partner in this endeavor but someone who could see the inner turmoil swirling in his heart. She nodded subtly, encouraging him to find his voice. "Mia, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to want to let go of hurt," he finally managed. "Sometimes just talking about it can help lighten the load." The girl's face lit up. "I can tell you a secret?" Mike's heart raced, caught in the simple yet profound nature of her request. This was the moment, a chance to engage deeper, to confront not only Mia's fears but his own reflections mirrored in her innocent desire to vocalize her struggles. "Yes, of course. I'd love to hear your secret," he said, kneeling to meet her at eye level. As she leaned in closer, whispering her thoughts, Mike's pulse quickened. In that moment it wasn't just about Mia's story, it was a chance for him to confront the shadows in his past, to transform vulnerability into connection. He realized now that the process of opening up was as valuable for him as it was for anyone. But just as Mia's words began to weave a tapestry of understanding, a shadow flickered across Tom's face. The unease in his eyes hinted at unfinished chapters of their family story that hung in the air like an uninvited guest. Mike sensed that there was more to this conversation than met the eye. A knot of anxiety built as he questioned whether he was prepared for the truths to come or if they would surfacing even darker secrets lurking beneath the surface. "Will you stay and listen?" Mia's voice broke through his thoughts, drawing him back to the moment. "Yes," he said, steeling himself for whatever revelations might follow. As the air thickened with anticipation and hidden revelations, he wondered, what untold truths would emerge from this heartfelt exchange, and how would they shape the path he had begun to forge for himself? Mia's words were soft but urgent, imbued with the weight of trust. As she leaned in, Mike's breath hitched, the vulnerability in her request weaving a thread of connection that not even his churning doubts could sever. He felt Eliza's steady presence nearby, her faith in him a comforting balm. "What secret?" Mike asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia took a moment, her brow furrowed as though she was grappling with something monumental for her age. "Sometimes, I feel like my heart is heavy," she confessed, her innocent eyes searching his. "Like, I want to play and laugh but, sometimes it hurts just too much." Sorrow washed over Mike. He glimpsed a painful familiarity in her struggle that mirrored his own, feelings he had bundled away, tucked tightly beneath layers of denial. The responsibility to guide a child through her pain weighed heavily on his chest. "What if you let me share a little secret of my own? It might help." Mia nodded, eyes wide with curiosity. He straightened, his mind racing as he forged ahead, instinctively conscious that he was no longer just a listener, he was a vessel for something larger than himself. "I've felt that heaviness too, Mia," he confessed. "There's been a point in my life where I didn't think I could talk about it. But then I discovered that sharing those feelings can be freeing." His voice trembled slightly, but he pressed on. "When we talk about what hurts, it makes it lighter." Tom watched silently, the shadows lifting slightly from his face as he listened intently. It struck Mike that this man, too, had burdens, perhaps woven intricately with Mia's own pain. He wanted to probe further, to unearth the family's veiled struggles, yet Mike knew he had to tread carefully, for both Mia and Tom. "Do you ever feel like you have to keep something's a secret?" Mike asked, hoping the simple question would allow Mia to open up further. "Yes," she replied, her voice small. "Like, I wish I could be brave and tell Daddy when I'm sad. But I don't want to make him sad too." Her words pierced through him, thick with unrecognized complexity and a brave young spirit that challenged his own understanding of vulnerability. What he saw was not just a child wrestling with emotions but a reflection of himself paralyzed by the fear of burdening others with his own struggles. "Being brave isn't just about showing strength," he said, heart racing as the reality of his statement sank in. "Sometimes, it's about admitting when you need help, like asking for comfort when you're scared." As he spoke, Mike felt an unbalancing shift within, as if he had just stumbled upon a buried treasure of self-awareness. This wasn't just a conversation with Mia, it was a dive into the core of who he was becoming, a mentor, a guide. He realized he was developing the courage to face his own shadows, to embrace his past rather than run from it. Suddenly, the door creaked open wider, revealing a figure, slender and shrouded in familiarity. Mike's heart sank, another who had a claim to this home and perhaps to its hidden truths. It was Sarah, his estranged sister, with eyes locked onto him like twin beacons of unresolved history. "Mia, sweetheart, time to come help me bake," Sarah chimed in, her voice tinged with warmth yet carrying an undertone of something else. Mia glanced between her father and Sarah, the air thickening with unspoken words. Mike's private awakening tangled with the invasive certainty that there was more beneath this seemingly innocuous domestic scene. Each revelation unveiled the delicate balance of confronting one's own past while navigating another's pain. "Please wait," Mike blurted out, instinctively reaching for connections he knew must be forged. The shift in the room was palpable, the laughter suddenly silenced, his decision hanging heavy between them. He questioned whether the instinct to dig deeper in that moment would heal or fracture the tentative bonds being formed. The stakes escalated, propelling him toward choices that would force him to confront both Mia's secret and the complexities of his own familial ties. What truth lay dormant beneath the surface, and would he have the strength to unearth it? Mike's throat felt tight, the unity he had just begun to forge with Mia now hanging in the balance, teetering on the edge of revelation and rupture. He held Sarah's gaze, a mixture of resentment and longing clashing within him. She had approached, arms open like a bridge, yet he couldn't shake off the feeling of an underlying current, a silent accusation between them, born of years filled with absence. "Mia, why don't you go help your Aunt Sarah?" he said, forcing his voice into a calm, even tone, desperately wishing for stability. Mia lingered a moment longer, uncertainty clouding her bright eyes, before she scampered off to the kitchen, leaving two adults laden with unspoken truths. The moment she was out of sight, Mike shifted his focus back to Sarah, who stood rigidly, the air thick with the weight of their history. "Why are you really here?" he asked, the words escaping in a sharp breath. "Is it just about baking, or is something else happening?" The smile slipped from Sarah's face, revealing the crack in her carefully constructed facade. "I want to be part of Mia's life, Mike. I know things haven't been right between us, but she needs family." Family. The word felt foreign, almost mocking in the wake of their fractured past. Memories surged forth, the missed birthdays, the silence on holidays, the rift torn wide after their mother's illness spiraled into conflict. It was all tied together by a common thread of avoidance, secrets festering and cracking like dry earth. "Why now?" he pressed, unwilling to let her deflect the conversation. "After everything, you think you can just waltz back into our lives and act like the past didn't happen?" Sarah's posture tightened, her voice wavering slightly as she spoke. "I know I've made mistakes, but I've changed. Can't you even see that? I'm not asking for forgiveness outright, I just want to start over, especially for Mia's sake." Her plea ricocheted against his defenses, stirring something deep within him, an unexpected vulnerability. Was she worth hearing out? What if, beneath the layers of grudges and grievances, there was a glimmer of mutual understanding? Mike wrestled with the thought, realizing the deeper conflict lay not in their shared history but in the choice he had to confront his own walls. "If we're going to move forward, I need to understand your part in this, too," he said slowly, surprised at his own resolve. "What made you stay away for so long?" A shadow crossed Sarah's features, the weight of regret shifting the atmosphere. "It was complicated. After Mom got sick, I felt inadequate. You took on so much, and I didn't know how to fit in. I ran instead, but not anymore." As her words sank in, Mike understood this wasn't just about him anymore. This was an opportunity to peel back layers that could either bind them closer or tear them apart definitively. In that moment, the burden of Mia's heaviness echoed inside him once more, an echo of understanding that resonated with this new confrontation. "I can't promise anything," he said, pushing through the uncertainty. "But if we're going to do this, we need to start sharing our truths, all of them. No more secrets." Just as the words left his mouth, an uncomfortable silence enveloped them. Their eyes locked, and he could see the same flicker of fear that had danced in Mia's gaze, a fear of the unknown, of the weight of honesty. Then, before either could break the stillness, a crash came from the kitchen, followed by Mia's startled shriek. Blood rushed to his face as instincts kicked in. He dashed toward the sound, his heart pounding in his ears. What if digging deeper unearthed more than they could handle? Each step amplified his awareness of how intertwined their fates had become, and he couldn't help but wonder if facing the truth would light the way or plunge them further into darkness. As he reached the threshold of the kitchen, he braced for what he would find, understanding that the weight of unspoken truths wasn't just about Mia anymore. Would he uncover more secrets that lay scattered like broken glass, threatening to cut them all if they weren't careful? Mike barreled through the kitchen doorway, his heart racing as the remnants of his earlier confrontation faded into the background. The chaos before him was startling. Mia was on the floor, a plate of cookies shattered beside her, the sweet scent mingling grotesquely with her gasp of surprise. "Mia!" Mike's voice cracked with urgency as he crouched down beside her, scanning for any sign of injury. Her wide eyes glistened with unshed tears, but they shimmered with more than fear, they mirrored realization, a weight she hadn't yet learned to articulate. I didn't mean to knock it over," she stammered, her voice trembling like the porcelain fragments. "I was trying to help." He gently grasped her shoulders, the moment sparking a cascade of feelings. "It's okay, hon, accidents happen," he reassured. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, the echo of their earlier conversation surged back. Was Mia reflecting more than just regret? Was she sensing the fissures within their family? Just then, Sarah stepped cautiously into the kitchen, her gaze shifting between Mike and Mia. "I should have helped her," she murmured, a hint of guilt heavy in her tone. "It's nothing, just a small accident," Mike replied dismissively, a protective instinct igniting within him. But there was more at play than just broken glass. An unsettling realization took hold. Could Mia comprehend the construction of emotional foundations just as she pieced together the shattered plate? He drew in a breath, channeling the intensity of the moment into clarity. "Mia," he said slowly, "you know it's not your fault, right? You were just trying to help, and that's what matters." As he spoke, he felt the need to expand those words to encourage her to find her voice amidst the crash of life's unpredictability. With a small nod, she wiped her eyes, the tears beginning to recede. Mike could see her confusion transitioning to contemplation. "But what if I break things again?" she whispered, vulnerability flooding her small frame. Turning to Sarah, Mike felt a flicker of challenge. This was no longer about him. It was about them as a unit, an opportunity to weave through the thread of their relationship. "No one is perfect, Mia. Sometimes, breaking things is a part of learning. It helps us understand how to build better next time." The room fell into a contemplative hush. Sarah lingered near the doorway, the weight of her own past looming like a shadow. "You're right, Mike," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Mistakes are part of the journey. I wish I'd learned that sooner." The words hit Mike like a tidal wave, raw truths sloshing against the dam he had built around himself. He hadn't just opened a door to Sarah, he was beginning to understand what it meant to lead Mia through the maze of their family's history. Recognizing that how they navigated their flaws could either fracture or solidify their bond, he turned back to Mia. "Mistakes are how we grow. And we're here to support each other through it all." Mia looked up at him, the murkiness of fear clearing. "Then can we build a new cookie tower together?" The innocent request broke the tension, and they all crested a wave of laughter. It was a moment of shared humanity that felt fragile yet profound. As Mike began collecting the pieces of the broken plate, a thought tugged at the corners of his mind. The echoes of their laughter felt different, they painted the walls of their lives in new colors. But the undercurrent of unaddressed issues lingered like a shadow. Still, in that moment, he recognized a pivotal shift within himself. The walls he built crumbled just slightly, allowing for the warmth of connection to seep through. If they were to navigate their past, he realized he needed more than surface conversations, he needed to confront the deeper truths that lay ahead. Before he could speak again, Sarah's phone vibrated, pulling her focus back to the outside world. "I have to take this," she said, her voice tinged with tension as she stepped outside. In that solitary moment with Mia, Mike's resolve grew clearer. He had uncovered a small facet of their collective healing, but how far back to their shared history was yet to be explored. Would he dare to face the past, not just for himself but in the light of Mia's innocence? As he watched Mia begin to gather the remaining cookie pieces, a new question emerged, one that would thread through their lives like the whisper of unspoken words. Could he confront the truths of his own shortcomings while forging a path forward for Mia, and what necessary reconciliations would they face with Sarah now standing at the precipice of a choice? The realization hit him hard, the echoes from the past had begun to reverberate into the future. And as Mike took a steadying breath, he sensed the horizon of redemption before him, an uncharted journey demanding he's ready to seize the opportunity. But would he have the courage to accept the paths toward healing when the full extent of their histories inevitably came back to haunt them? The days following the encounter in the kitchen became pivotal moments for Mike. Between conversations with Eliza and navigating his budding relationship with Mia and Sarah, he felt an unfamiliar lightness, one that was laced with clarity. This newfound purpose pulsated like a beacon, guiding him toward long-sought redemption. Every interaction strengthened the man he was destined to become. He found himself re-evaluating his own struggles and how they intertwined with those of Mia and her father. It began as an inkling but quickly morphed into an undeniable truth. He didn't just want to be an advocate for Lily and her grandfather, he wanted to be the man who could tear down barriers within his own family, beginning with Sarah. With Eliza's encouragement, Mike initiated open dialogues with both Sarah and Mia about their emotions, navigating the complex terrains of pain and aspirations. Every shared moment peeled away layers of resentment, evidence of the past when they had distanced themselves from familial bonds. One evening, as the setting sun cast golden hues across the neighborhood, Mike gathered his courage and proposed a family dinner. It would be a chance not only to share a meal but to share stories, real ones, layered instead of polished. The anticipation tinged the air, invigorating yet daunting. He was terrified but resolute. As they sat around the table, Mia's laughter mingled with the warmth of camaraderie, enticing Mike to dig deep into his own willingness to share. "You know, Mia," he began tentatively, "there was a time in my life where I struggled to speak up as well." The openness of his admission danced around the dinner table, precariously weaving between vulnerability and strength. "A long time ago, I felt trapped in silence, afraid of being judged. But I discovered that when I spoke out, when I shared my truth, I found allies. I realized I could help myself while helping others too." He locked eyes with Sarah, feeling her recognition pierce through his defenses. Mia, bright-eyed, responded, "Sometimes I think I'm not brave enough to say my feelings. What if they go away if I talk about them?" Her doubt hung in the air, ripe for exploration. "That's okay, kiddo," Sarah interjected gently. "Talking is a start. Little by little, you will become braver." A flicker of understanding crossed their faces, as they realized that their conversations were not just about words but the construction of trust. In those inviting moments, Mike felt the internal transformation take root. Acknowledge his vulnerabilities and embrace the echoes of his past, this was his strength. The hesitation that once loomed over him like storm clouds gave way to sunny days filled with connection. Fast forward, they began organizing community gatherings, a platform beyond just their family lessons. Mike painted the importance of togetherness with stark strokes, sharing the stories of those like Lily and her grandfather, igniting inspiration across the town. The once quiet community center became a hub of interaction, where laughter intertwined with dialogues about past sacrifices and future dreams. As for Mike's endeavor to support Lily and her family, the initiative blossomed beyond initial expectations. With each dedicated gathering, the townsfolk began to contribute not just financially, but emotionally. A former military colleague stepped forward, wanting to share his struggles too. Volunteers emerged, eager to engage in helping families fade from the background. Recognition flowed like a river through Mike's daily life. Schools started to teach resilience and empathy along with academics, rooted in stories shared from Mike's outreach. His transformation was palpable, the weight of isolation worn down by the applause of recognition, the thank yous echoing from families who felt seen for the first time in years. Months passed, and on a bright afternoon, Mike stood outside the community hall, where an outdoor event crowned with banners and laughter unfolded. Zeus frolicked among the children, a symbol of the union they all had fought for. He felt solid confidence within. This was what he had craved, not just the act of advocacy but the rebirth of a communal spirit. The final moments of his day culminated in an epiphany. Growth is born not just of triumph but the willingness to transform pain into purpose. Mike had proven that every story mattered, and so did every healing. In honoring his past and embracing connection, he secured the place he so desperately sought, not just in the community but within himself. As he looked around, seeing the smiles of Mia, Sarah, and the community he had helped revive, he felt pride coursing through him, justified and steadfast. He had conquered his insecurities, healed relationships, and inspired change within himself and others. He was no longer just a soldier, he was an advocate, a father figure, and a changing current within the lives he touched. The echoes of his journey resonated deep, sending ripples across his heart, a long-forgotten song now sung loud and clear. Mike connected deeply with his purpose. He smiled, feeling complete. It was time to embrace the next chapter of their lives fully. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Don't wait even one more second to share.